Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, let's make a classic Puerto Rican snack or appetizer known as bacalaitos. So let's get into it. So for my bacalaito recipe, I will be drawing inspiration from this recipe from the classic Puerto Rican cookbook called Cocine Conmigo by Dora Romano. And real quick, I wanted to show you the salt fish that I'll be using today. I'm using Goya's salted pollock fish, but feel free to use salted cod. So I'm gonna start by boiling my salt fish first for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to drain that water, add fresh water into my pot, and boil for an additional 10 minutes. That way I can remove about 75 to 80% of the salt. All right, so while my saltfish is boiling, I'm gonna go ahead and start on the mixture for my batter. So I'm gonna start by adding 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. By the way, this is a half cup measuring cup. That's why I put 3 of them in there. So just in case anyone's confused. So I'm gonna start by adding 1.5 cups of flour. And just an FYI, I am using traditional salted fish for this bacalaito recipe because that's how you traditionally make it. However, if you cannot find salt fish in your area, feel free to use fresh codfish or fresh pollock fish, whether fresh or frozen, but you're still gonna need to boil the fish. That way you can draw out all of the moisture in the fish so that you are left with nothing but the meat. Because if not, you're gonna have soggy bacalaitos. All right, now jumping back into the batter, I'm gonna add 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And then I'm gonna add about 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. You can also add a little onion powder if you wish, but I just added garlic powder. And then I'm gonna add about 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano. The really good thing about this batter is it's pretty customizable, so you can pretty much add whatever you like. And then I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper. But yeah, you can play around with the spices and, customize it to your taste. All right, and now I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of this Laurie's Casero all-purpose seasoning. You can also use adobo. Now, while the saltfish, even though we're boiling out the salt, it's still going to be pretty salty. So you are going to add this salted all-purpose seasoning to your taste. I say start with about 1/2 teaspoon, and then once the batter is done, you can give it a little taste test and go from there and adjust accordingly. And then I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of my fresh homemade sofrito. I have 2 videos on my channel on how to make sofrito. If you don't have sofrito, you can just use finely chopped red pepper, green pepper, and onion. And it'll actually make the bacalaitos look very pretty and colorful. So if you don't have sofrito, it's okay. Sometimes you just gotta work with what you got. All right, so all of my ingredients minus the fish is in my batter. So I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 cups of cold water. And then I'm gonna give that a good whisk, and you are going to be left with a pretty thin and runny batter. Some people's batters comes out a little thicker, but I like a nice thin batter because then it'll give me a nice thin crispy bacalaito. All right, so my bacalao is done boiling, and I'm simply going to use the back of a fork and flake it up very finely. You can leave it a little chunkier if you want, but I suggest to get it pretty small and flaky. That way, that way your bacalaito is like nice and thin and uniform, and you don't have like really big chunky pieces of fish. Unless you want to do that, then, by all means, do whatever you like. But we're going to try to keep this recipe as traditional as possible. And then I say after you make it yourself, after you try this recipe, if you want to make it a second time, then you can adjust and do whatever you wish. That's the beauty of cooking, right? You can always do things how you want to do. And at the end of the day, it's art. Cooking is art. So yeah, so I'm going to use the back of my fork and flake it up really, really good. And then once I'm done, I'm simply going to pour it in my batter. Oh, and really quick, before I forget, I'm going to add half of a packet of Goya sazon. You can use one full packet. My mom always added sazon to her bacalaitos and they were delicious, so this is something that she did. However, if you are allergic to sazon, feel free to use ground annatto powder or smoked paprika to give it that nice, rich color and that added flavor. All right, and now it's time to fry my bacalaitos. I have a deep pot here filled with plenty of oil, and I have already fried a couple of bacalaitos. That's why there's some crumbs in my oil. I have my heat set a little under medium. I do not have it too hot. You do not want to have your heat too high because then when you pour in the batter, the bacalaito batter will puff up and they'll look almost donut-like. So to keep them nice and thin and crispy, you want to have your oil just hot enough. And I'm gonna fry them for about 4 minutes on each side until they're nice and golden. All right, and that is all for today's video. I made about 50 bacalaitos, so I have plenty of leftovers in my freezer. So yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. It helps my channel a ton. Hit that notification bell, and as always, do not forget to subscribe. See you next time.